Tyler Reddick crossing the finish line at Daytona wasn't just a sporting moment, it was a financial validation. When Michael Jordan hugged him in victory lane, most fans saw a basketball legend finally conquering NASCAR. But if you look at the balance sheet, you see something entirely different. That single lap triggered an 8-figure revenue event that proves 23XI Racing isn't playing the same game as the rest of the garage. While legacy teams chase trophies to keep the lights on, Jordan and Denny Hamlin built a system where brand equity matters more than horsepower. On Sunday, that system paid out. 23XI isn't just a race team, it is a marketing agency that happens to own fast cars, and this win was the proof of concept. Let's look at the immediate cash flow from Sunday to see how the money actually moves. Everyone is talking about the record-breaking $31 million purse reported by Fox Sports and Racing News. It sounds massive and the headlines love it. But if you think 23XI just deposited a $30 million check, you don't understand how NASCAR money works. We need to deconstruct this payday because the reality is actually more intricate than the headline number suggests. The winner's share of that purse is historically around 5 to 6%. So for Reddick's win, the team likely grossed about $1.6 million directly from the league. That covers the car, the travel, and the crew bonuses for the week. It's operational cash, not profit. The real wealth is hidden in the back pages of the sponsorship contracts. In this industry, primary partners like McDonald's, Monster Energy, and the US Air Force don't just pay a flat fee. They have performance escalators. Standard Tier 1 agreements usually include a crown jewel bonus clause. Winning the Daytona 500 isn't like winning Kansas. It triggers immediate payouts ranging from $500,000 to $2 million per major partner. When you stack those bonuses, that $1.6 million purse quickly swells into a $5 million cash infusion overnight. The sponsors are happy to pay it because the ROI they get from a Daytona win dwarfs the check they write. Then you have the merch multiplier. This is where the Jordan connection destroys the competition. When a Hendrick or Gibbs driver wins, they sell standard die-cast and t-shirts with low margins, split with Fanatics and the league. When the 45 car wins, it activates the Jordan brand machine. We are talking about co-branded apparel with Nike-level margins, upwards of 70%, selling to a global audience that doesn't even watch racing. They just saw MJ celebrating on Instagram. That exposure is worth millions in free advertising, but it also converts directly to high-margin unit sales that legacy teams simply cannot replicate because they don't own a lifestyle brand. They just rent space on the hood. 23XI owns the culture. You also have to look at the immediate valuation spike. We saw over 200 million global impressions, combining the broadcast reach with MJ's personal social ecosystem. That matters because next year's renewal negotiations just got expensive. You can't buy that kind of reach. 23XI can now walk into boardrooms and point to Sunday as proof that they transcend the sport. But here's the thing. Race winnings and t-shirt sales are just cash flow. They keep the lights on. The real wealth, the reason Jordan entered this sport, is in the asset value. To understand why 23XI is the most profitable team, you have to look at the lawsuit that changed everything. Last year, 23XI and Front Row Motorsports sued NASCAR on antitrust grounds. It looked risky. Pundits said they were biting the hand that feeds them. But look at what they actually won. They didn't just want more prize money, they wanted asset permanence. Before this settlement, a NASCAR charter was a depreciating asset that could be revoked. It was a rental agreement. Jordan and Hamlin fought to turn it into real property. Let's track the valuation history to see the arbitrage. 23XI bought their initial charters for roughly $13.5 million to $20 million. At the time, that seemed steep. But following the settlement and the new evergreen structure, industry estimates now peg those same charters at anywhere from $50 million to $100 million each. That is a 5x return on equity in under 5 years. You don't get that in the S&P 500. By securing the permanent right to race, they transformed a risky expense into a blue-chip asset. This means they can now borrow against the value of the team at significantly lower rates, giving them access to cheap capital that other teams simply cannot touch. There is also a fascinating accounting trick tied to this Daytona win. The new charter agreement relies heavily on a 3-year rolling performance metric to determine revenue sharing. By winning the biggest race of the year, the 45 team effectively guarantees they will remain in the top tier of the payout structure for the next 3 seasons. It locks in maximum revenue sharing from the league media rights deal. We are talking about securing an annual fixed revenue floor of roughly $8 million to $9 million per car, regardless of how they finish in other races. This removes the volatility from their balance sheet. This is where the difference between legacy assets and growth assets becomes clear. Teams like Reddick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing have held charters for years. For them, charters are operational necessities, tickets to the dance. They bought them cheap, sure, but they treat them as sunk costs or family heirlooms. MJ and his financial team treated charters like tech stock options. They recognized that if they could force a change in the governance structure, which they did via the lawsuit, the value of those options would explode. And they were right. While other owners were worried about weekly purses, 23XI was engineering a $150 million equity swing. They weren't building a race team to win trophies. They were building a portfolio. And now, with the new agreement in place, that portfolio is liquid. They have 3 charters worth a combined fortune, a guaranteed revenue stream from the TV deal that covers their base costs, and a winning car that drives sponsorship rates through the roof. It is the perfect financial loop. But having the assets is one thing. Generating operational profit is another. Now we need to compare their efficiency against the giants of the sport to see why their margins are so much better. Let's execute the most profitable benchmark comparison. If you line up 23XI Racing against the giants of the sport, Reddick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing, the on-track stats still favor the legacy teams. Reddick runs 4 cars and wins championships like clockwork, relying on decades of institutional knowledge. But if you look at the P&L, 23XI is winning the efficiency war. The secret weapon is what industry insiders call the Jordan tax. Legacy teams sell racing, 23XI sells culture. When a sponsor like McDonald's or Monster Energy negotiates with a traditional team, the price is dictated by Nielsen ratings and track attendance. It is a commodity transaction where leverage is limited, but when they negotiate with 23XI, they are paying for proximity to Michael Jordan. This allows the team to charge CPMs, cost per 1,000 impressions, that are 2 to 3 times the industry average. Sponsors aren't just buying a logo on a hood, they are buying access to a cultural ecosystem that transcends the sport. It is the difference between buying a billboard on a highway and buying a Super Bowl ad. The reach is qualitatively different and the price tag reflects that. Then you have to look at the cost structure. This is where the business model gets really smart. Reddick and Gibbs carry massive overhead. They employ hundreds of engineers, build their own chassis, and manufacture parts in-house. That costs upwards of $20 million a year just to keep the facility running. 23XI operates differently. They run a lean operation that relies on a technical alliance with Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing. They essentially rent the speed. They pay an estimated $18 to $20 million for the technical data and equipment, but they don't have the massive capital expenditure of running a manufacturing plant. They let Gibbs burn cash on R&D while they focus on being a marketing agency. This is an asset-light model in a heavy industry sport. This brings us to the Robin Hood factor. If you look at the 23XI car, you see brands that don't usually spend money in NASCAR. You see fintech, big tech, and consumer lifestyle brands. These non-endemic sponsors have marketing budgets that dwarf the traditional automotive sponsors like motor oil or tool companies. They prefer 23XI's demographic reach because it skews younger and more diverse than the typical NASCAR fan. Traditional teams are fighting over a shrinking pool of industrial sponsors, while 23XI is tapping into Silicon Valley and Wall Street marketing budgets. The data proves it works. According to financial disclosures from the antitrust trial, the average NASCAR team lost approximately $2.2 million per car in 2024. They were bleeding cash just to stay on the track, often subsidized by the wealthy owners' other businesses. In contrast, 23XI projected profitability due to this high-margin sponsorship model. They turned a profit not because they won more races, but because they built a system where revenue is decoupled from the podium. They proved that you don't need to be the winningest team in history to be the richest. You just need the best brand. So here is the reality. 23XI Racing proved that in the modern sports business, brand equity is a significantly stronger leverage point than historical performance. They didn't wait to win championships before charging premium rates. They built the brand first, and the wins followed. If you want to understand the brutal legal battle that made this financial model possible, you need to watch our deep dive into the NASCAR antitrust lawsuit right here. It explains exactly how they forced the league to pay up,